Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today I have Devontae Hayes on the show. He's going to share his experience of being in the military. I want to go back. I want to talk about part two. Welcome to. Oh God, now I always get caught up in my spiel sometimes. So let me go. Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're doing part two with Devontae Hayes. He's going to share his experience of being in the military. Get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back. Welcome back, brother.
Hey.
Yeah, man. I really enjoyed the first segment of the show. I learned a lot about you and learned a lot about your experience being in the military. I want to kind of jump into it and talk a little bit about um, the married aspect of being in the military because I've heard that sometimes people get married so that they can get more money or more benefits. Is it some truth to that?
Oh, absolutely. You usually get paid more. Death gratuity goes up. Just about every aspect, you get a little, at
Yeah.
least a little bit more money.
Wow.
Um, the main issue I found is the turnaround or the turnover of marriages because usually it's if you don't come into well even if you come in married, um, there's usually problems at home. There's a whole
Yeah.
term for it, Jody. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah.
But um, the other big one is usually people in the same unit getting married. Then you're working with your spouse or whatever, and then eventually it just breaks apart. Um, so yes, it is true.
Yeah.
I just think that more often than not, you're dealing more with the reallocations or re-putting back the money after the divorces and stuff like that. So it's an interesting process.
So wait, maybe I'm hearing this wrong. So if a person got divorced in the military, they have to pay the money back that
No,
they
no, no.
earned.
Oh, no, no,
Oh,
no. It's just more about getting that pay reduced for the next
oh,
check, whatever. So
okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
And you was responsible for handling that part too?
that part, no. It was the death gratuity part that I would fix because then we're going back to the single or whatever the plan was before, um, because we gotta just make sure we're sending it to the right person. That would be a shame. You pass away and then it goes to your ex-wife or couple ex-wives ago and stuff like that. And yeah, because stuff like that has happened, but it's more on the side of the person didn't want to up their stuff. So it's just an interesting thing to see. Uh, yeah, how many times someone can get married, and they say this one is the one.
Oh, so people would get married multiple times.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so interesting to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I've seen just about everything. So from actual full-on marriage to just we'll do the certificate, you keep my last name or you keep your last name, it doesn't really matter. Uh yeah, it's a lot. There's just the amount of ways that people try to game the system is wild.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. What about people's mental health? Did you see any people in their mental health start to decline from what they were experiencing? Just some of the things that they was going through. Did you see any people mental health decline?
Oh, absolutely. So especially in basic training, yes, that's an obvious one. Like I said, I in the first one, there was a guy that said he was feeling suicidal. It was an interesting one because like it not only kind of motivated everyone else to kind of keep into it, because after they took his shoelaces and everything, he was still with us. So it
Man.
was kind of a motivation to keep moving on, because there wasn't a get out early option. Um, but on the AIT side, or the job training side, a little less, a lot more freedom and stuff. So if anything, people kind of calmed down, and we started seeing, the more civilian side of people. Um, and it was interesting, because the the ideals, or you a lot of people are coming into this young, so you could see people, you can watch people mature within a couple years of this.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely, like it is a huge mental, like there's a lot of mental health is like ignored during this.
Yeah.
After I got out and I was in my normal unit, or the one in BT Collins, I started seeing some of the newer people that are going through the system. And there was I was told there was a card system, to
Okay.
where you can put up a card or whatever if a drill sergeant's getting too mean with you. I don't know how true that is, but
Yeah.
that's what they said when they went through. um, I've just been hearing a lot of like drill sergeants are cutting back now, like they're not as
Yeah.
aggressive and stuff, which I don't know. I mean, you ask someone that served in Vietnam, they'll probably tell you, "Oh, it's terrible." But
Yeah.
I in general, I don't think there's a need to be as abusive
Yeah.
toward your own people. I can understand the mental toughness that you will need in things like war and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for a good like 40% of people that go into basic, they're never going to see combat. They're never going to see the most combat they're seeing is in basic training.
Yeah.
So I think it's redundant at times.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just one of those things, like I was saying, how just in the past 20 years a lot has changed, let alone since Vietnam. So, and a lot of those old mentalities are still with ingrained into the military system, regardless of which branch.
Yeah. So I know way back in the day, they, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that homosexuality was not either accepted or frowned upon
Mm.
if someone joined the military. Do you think that's still today, or was it like, how was that?
So also, I mean, I also have to keep in mind, I went in at 2012, so it's about almost 10, oh geez, almost, it was over 10 years ago, geez.
Yes.
Um, and what's it called? The don't ask, don't tell kind of
Okay.
policy was still around ish. Like, don't get me wrong, I definitely knew some gay guys in the military, but it
Right.
wasn't like um it was definitely like a lot different from going from California, where it's a little more acceptable, and
Right.
a lot more openly gay areas and stuff like that, to where here in the military is, you say you could talk about how you're being, you're gay and stuff like that, but a lot of people just don't either care, or I never saw any like violent acts upon it.
Good.
Um, but that's not to say that they don't happen.
Yeah.
I'm only one person, but in my time, I didn't see much of it. A lot of jokes about it, stuff like that. Um, but I think that's just of the time that a lot of people did that.
Yeah. Did you all get a chance to interact with female military people, or would y'all have to stick strictly to the men?
No, so we had, I mean, our I mean, there was a our building did have both men and women in it. It was just separated based on where you slept, with men and women.
Oh,
Um, Other than that, though, yeah, no, we were still integrated like, yeah, any school or anything like that.
okay. What was the most fun thing that you have experienced in the military? Like,
Oh, that's an easy one. Throwing a grenade. That was probably one of my favorite things.
really?
Just because it's like it's not something you could really do outside of the military. It's very hard to find where you can throw a grenade. Shooting guns was cool and all, but you can do that just about anywhere. I mean, even in California, you have plenty of gun ranges and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those things, like the way they just get you, like, I don't know, not like amp you up for it, but just to let you know, like, hey, do not drop this. You know, like a lot of people get to that point where they, you know, do the full wind up and throw, and then they
Yeah.
just drop it.
Wow.
And you know, that's one of the things, you know, so we have, it's like this little square that we're in this field with, a wall to
Yeah.
kind of help from the blast, and then it's you and a drill sergeant standing in this
Yeah.
square. He's watching you throw it, just in case you drop it, so he can, you know, move you out of the way, or move you both out of as far as way as possible. But yeah, it's just one of those, like, I don't know, like, you know, a lot of people do M80s or, you know, other explosives in, you know, the civilian side, but like a grenade is, I don't know, it's something different about it. You hear the boom and then you hear the shrapnel hit everything, and then it's just, I don't know, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever get caught breaking the rules?
Uh, I never did. No, I was pretty well. I wouldn't say sneaky because I didn't really do anything that was wrong or bad. It was just
Yeah.
more, um, I don't know. There's not like there wasn't much to do that would, you know, I mean, like being out would, or, you know, being up or anything like that. You're just kind of screwing yourself out for later because, you know, we got to wake up earlier. You know, we got to do all this other stuff. So I'm like, the only time you had free time to do anything was when you're sleeping, and even then, I'm like, I'm done. We had
Yeah.
a, you know, 13, 14-hour day of doing, you know, whatever.
That's crazy.
I'm
Crazy.
tired.
Yeah. So have you ever did something in the military that you was not supposed to do? Let me rephrase the question.
In AIT, I mean, I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to do this, but so like I said, in the first part, there I was stationed in Fort Jackson. So for both basic and AIT, my job training, I was in the same place. The only thing that really changed is I was living a block away from where I used to live.
Okay.
Um, and one of the things that was new was that we were allowed to smoke cigarettes. And then, you know, there's a couple times where we can go out, off, or either on post or off post. There was a couple of times they would let us. Um, so for me, I had to get my wisdom teeth pulled.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I was going to the hospital with, basic training people and, you know, the other people. And I would start to smoke, but then I had basic training guys that would come up to me saying they would buy a cigarette for like 5, 6, 7, $10, you know.
Wow.
And so I started just selling cigarettes while I was, you know, at the hospital anyway to get my wisdom teeth pulled or recovery or whatever. So
Yeah,
that
nice.
was one of those interesting things where I was just like, huh, never really thought I'd make a side hustle off of selling cigarettes, but here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of my things, that I did. And yeah, it was just surprising. Like, just, you never know what people miss from the outside, especially during basic.
Yeah.
A lot of people miss cigarettes and they would pay a lot for them.
Yeah. And you was like, I'm
I
gonna
will take,
give
I'll
it.
take this money because I'm like, I'm not a big smoker either. It was just more of like, I used to smoke a lot of weed before I was in basic training, and
Yeah.
like the sensation of smoking cigarettes is, you know, it's has similar satisfactions, but I was just like, yeah, this is not the same.
Yeah. One of my friends, he had joined the military, and he's a guy that has a very, very, very strong personality, super
Mm.
strong. And it was tough for him in there because he didn't like being told what to do.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah. So what he did, he started to smoke marijuana, and they eventually kicked him out. He did this on purpose, and
mm.
they kicked him out. So yeah, he got a dishonorable discharge. He didn't care. He was like this. It was really affecting him mentally, and he couldn't deal with it.
Right. Which I find that's kind of ironic because like a lot of the guys I talk to after they get out of the military, a lot of their appointments and other things that, you know, you would think the military would cover, as far as like medication and stuff, they wouldn't. So
Yeah.
they would switch to marijuana and stuff like that, and see that, you know, they would be able to stay calm and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Not to say like, oh, I think marijuana just fixes it all. I just think it is a helpful tool for PTSD and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
other issues you see common with military vets.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your transition back into civilian life. How was that for you when you first transitioned from the military into civilian life?
So
What
it
was that
was
like?
kind of easy for me because, like I said, in my last year, they put me with, this unit in Vallejo, which was a reserve unit, and then I was eventually moved back to my hometown of Sac to BT Collins, which is like, oh, where is that? It's like near Rosemont area, kind of.
Okay.
Um, the overall kind of feeling, I felt, there's times where things like sleeping was a constant, like where I'd wake up early. Even now, like there's times where I still wake up at like 6, 7, 8, and it's
Wow.
10 years later. But I think that's just more just because I've had jobs that have, messed around with my sleep schedule. I've, worked with Amazon and a couple other places where I'm like there at night or whatever.
Yeah.
But in general, I think as smooth as it could have been, because I've seen a lot of people that are just like, I need to re-enlist. I don't like being a civilian. I, on the other hand, I was like, I'm kind of done. I was done with the military. It was cool to see old friends again, and just kind of keeping in touch with people. Um, and yeah, I just had other goals and stuff that I wanted to get done in life, so it just kind of gave me that air and opportunity to kind of just like breathe a little bit with it.
Yeah.
Not to say it's just everything became simple because I was a military vet. On the contrary, there was a lot of issues I still had because of the military. Um, but the overall feeling like of me getting out wasn't difficult. Like I never had a point where I was just like, I need to go back, or I can't stand this, or
Yeah.
um just overall just more just kind of relaxing more, trying to find that inner calmness again, because yeah, there's just a lot of times like a lot of existential, or I don't know, there's a lot of rushing moments, or where you're just like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna get done, or what's gonna happen today, or
Yeah.
yeah, it's just wildness.
Yeah. What you just said, did I hear you right when you said there are still a lot of issues that you're still dealing with from the military? Is that correct?
Sleep problems, like here and
Okay.
there. There's still times where I wake up early. I don't know if it's just from the military or the fact that I've had other jobs that have kind of, messed with my sleep schedule, but
Yeah.
waking up early isn't an issue for me most of
Yeah.
the time.
You know what's interesting? I know three people, three veterans today that are fairly young, and all three of them have sleep issues from
Mm,
the military. All three, which I think is really interesting. One of no, two of them had PTSD. I don't
mm.
know if the other girl got something going on, but all of them have, issues with sleeping at night. As a matter of fact, some of them on medication where they have to take sleeping medication to get them to sleep a full night of rest.
That was yeah. For me, I did sleeping medication for a little bit, serotonin and stuff like that. Nothing too heavy. I
Yeah,
just try to keep it to more natural things. I find that teas work. You got to get the right ones, obviously, because there's ones that'll keep you up, and then those ones
yeah,
that'll actually, help you go to sleep. Um,
interesting.
but
Yeah,
yeah, that was one that was difficult for me because especially coming right out of the military, a lot of people were used to energy drinks and all this other stuff to kind of
yeah,
keep themselves going.
yeah,
um it's hard to take that crash of not doing any of that stuff and kind of prolong your sleep schedule. So like there'd be times
yeah,
where I would just stay up, you
yeah.
know for a day or two to kind of reset my sleep schedule, so like
Wow.
yeah, stuff like that would be interesting. But yeah, I don't know, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, don't use sleep medication, but
Yeah,
different things work for different people.
yeah. Do you know anybody that was in the military personally that experienced PTSD either in there or when they got out?
um as far as like doctor diagnosed, not really, but there's a lot of things that you see different. I don't know. A lot of like my high school friends say I act a lot different now, and I
Really?
just like to say that's because I'm an adult. But then they're like, yeah, no, you're just more alert with things. You're a lot more, just coherent about stuff. And I was just like, oh, well, thanks for saying I was lazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Um, but nothing too wild. Like as far as like, yeah, PTSD, I don't know of anyone specifically. And I think that's just because of, I think it's also changed a lot, because we used to call PTSD shell shock,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think I don't want to say that PTSD kind of limits, or kind of, I don't know. It feels like a nicer term than shell shock, because shell shock was more because of World War II vets and Vietnam and all these other wars where there was full on battles and stuff like that we really don't. I mean, we have here and there, but it's not as open that we use that how we
Yeah.
used to fight. Nowadays, I think it's more of the on edgeness, especially with like things like World War III and a lot of Ukraine stuff and stuff that's going on now that has a lot of vets on edge, like I've seen. But in general, I'm like, I know they're not gonna call me,
Yeah.
so I'm fine. But
Yeah.
I know other friends that are still like within their like deployable time that are just like, oh, it could be any day now.
Wow.
So yeah, you have a lot of those, like the anxiety of it all.
Yeah.
That I see, but I don't think it's more of like a waking up in cold sweats because you remembered something
Yeah.
back then or whatever.
Yeah. Have you experienced, since you've been out the military, have you experienced like what word am I looking for? Like something like if you hear a song or if you saw a certain color or like any triggers for you that remind you of the military now that you're out?
Ironically, what was that Mariah Carey song? The that Christmas one she does, "All I Want for Christmas Is You."
Yeah.
Because I went during Christmas time. I don't know why that I always think about when I was on the bus, like going
Wow.
to my field op. Was that, yeah, or no? We were coming back, and everyone was like, that was like the only time I was happy to hear that song,
Yeah.
because it just like, all right, I'm out of the cold. I'm about to go into a warm bed. It might
Yeah.
not be the most comfortable of beds, but it's better than a tent or a foxhole in the ground. And yeah, that was
Yeah.
a lot. But yeah, that song is one that I think of a lot. But yeah.
Yeah. So talking to you, it seems like because I've talked to people and I have friends, it seems like they had more of uh, their experience a little bit more impactful coming from the military, and some good and some bad ways, like pros and cons. But talking to you, it was just kind of like, it's my experience, some on my bucket list, and I moved
Yeah.
on. But it don't really seem like to have affected you like it did them. And I don't know
Honestly, and
what you.
I've seen that a lot. Like I would just say, just between, so I have an old roommate that was a Marines vet, and he still does stuff here and there, and you could
Yeah.
tell like he has, like, not like he wants to go to war, but it's like you could tell he got in and expected to see something, and then now
Yeah.
he's kind of not dealing with that, and kind of stepping back from it all, more just trying to be in the life of his wife and all this other stuff, and trying to be move on with his life, because he's trying to do like animation and all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
he's going to school for that and all that. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's tough to kind of break apart what you wanted out of the military versus
Yeah.
what you got. uh and yeah, I think just for me, because it was never about like, oh, I need to go to war or whatever.
Right.
I never had these like He-Man, like fantasies about killing whatever.
Yeah.
It was just more a college decision. I wanted to make some money off of it, especially
Yeah.
coming straight out of high school. Like I had some, entrepreneurial experience and like some outreach stuff, but
Yeah.
it was nothing to be like, yeah, no, this is why you should hire me. So after that, became easy to start with taxes,
Yeah.
and working with H&R Block, all that stuff that I did afterwards. I don't know, it was an easy transition for me. Whereas like a
Yeah.
lot of people, this was their life. This, most of them thought, okay, I'll start with the 4 years and then I'll maybe transition to the 20, or, the full life or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, everyone deals with differently. Also, I came in at it young. So that's another
Yeah.
thing. A lot of people, when they get older and they're joining, it's just like, this is it. I don't want to do anything else. I'm not trying to go to, prison. I'm not trying to do all this other stuff. My old lifestyle was hectic, and I need to change from stuff. So,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting way of, you never know when someone's going into it.
Yeah. I like how you said like with some folks, it is their life. I know one of my friends, it's like he can't disconnect from being in the military, and it is his life. I mean, he has Marines paraphernalia everywhere, his car, cups,
Mm.
license plate thing, and you know, and he was like a drill sergeant in there too.
Yeah, that's
And
that definitely. Yeah.
you know, he can't break away. Like it's you know, it's his life. This kind of like this is all he know, you
Mm.
know. And I know other people who been in the military, they did went on, I got out, got a master's degree, and you couldn't even really tell they was in the military. But for
Right.
some reason, him, it's like he can't shake that. And
Mm.
and he does suffer for PTSD, and you know, he's seeing a therapist, he has
Right.
anger issues, and like, you know, you could just tell. And that's what
Mhm.
made me ask you the question earlier. If you do you think it would be more challenging for somebody who had pretty much the opposite personality as you, because you guys are like totally opposite when it
Mhm.
comes to, you know, transitioning out of there.
Yeah, so for me, I found one thing that I don't know, in general with life, I feel like journaling has been one of my biggest helps. Just because there's definitely times where I find myself, I feel like addicted to thinking. Like you kind of just get in this thinking spiral, and then you just kind of can't stop thinking.
Yeah.
And that was one of those big ones with the military, because there's a lot of X factors, a lot of things that I've never seen before, and a lot of things that even like the drill sergeants are like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. So
Right.
you just kind of realize, okay, hey, let's put this down to paper, so that way I'm not constantly thinking about it. I know that I thought about it, or kind of clear my mind of it.
Right.
I just know for a lot of people they don't have that time to do that. Not like it takes
Yeah.
hours to journal or whatever, but it's just you don't find time in the day to just put it down.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, especially as a drill sergeant, like we woke up as soldiers at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, which means they have to be up and ready to go to wake us up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So they're like 3, 4, and they
Yeah.
switched out. There's like 2 or 3 drill sergeants per platoon, but it was more. Yeah, they got to be ready. They have to be physically fit. They've got to set the bar on what we as soldiers or privates need to aspire to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It has definitely I can tell it's definitely he definitely has mental health challenges for sure. I'll just
Mm.
say that. Like it's so obvious, you know. And I always asked him, because I didn't meet him until I came to California. I said, what was you like growing up? Because I always was interested in that, seeing how he is now. And you know, he did tell me that he said, you know, the military did change my life. Like it wasn't, I was not nothing like I am now, you know. And I thought that was really interesting. And because you know, I feel like he got a little bit of schizophrenia, multiple
Mhm.
personality. I feel like a little bit of that's going on, because one minute he will be, you know, cool and level headed, and the next minute he just boom, his personality would change, and it's just, you know. So, and I kind of hate that for him, that he had to inherit that from the
For me,
military.
I've seen a little bit of that. Like, so when I'm talking to my military buddies, there is a language switch. Like, not like we just stopped speaking English, but it's just more a lot of the military slang or whatever comes out, and I can know as a outside person that might be weird, or might be crass or harsh or whatever, but it's more of that's what we did, for years,
Yeah,
and it's not to excuse it. It's just more of like why we do it instead
yeah,
of it just didn't come from somewhere. And I would imagine, I mean, I only did 4 years, so I don't know how long he was in, but if he was doing it longer, it could have only gotten worse.
yeah,
And you kind of get set in that way. Because yeah, even when I started doing therapy and stuff like that, a lot of my military stuff popped up that I didn't even know kind of played an effect on me, or not even
yeah,
like just things I thought like I kept stuck in my mind. So like when we were in the field, we did a fire watch, which
yeah,
was you just someone's got to sit and watch and make sure nothing happens.
yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and so for me, there was one where I was sitting, laying in we were sleeping in foxholes, just little, pretty much a nice little grave for yourself, little shallow grave. And the guy kept waking me up, but I remember I wasn't getting up. And so he just kept saying my name, Hayes, over and over again. And I remember that stuck in my mind. And it's just like one of those things, like anytime I have a sleepless night, like that's one of those memories that pop up. So things
Wow.
like that can happen. But I think that's just a general thing with life, you never know what sticks out in your mind. The human mind is a wild thing.
Yeah. What advice would you give somebody who is thinking about joining the military?
Air Force, go to Air Force.
Okay.
If you can, if you can do Air Force, do Air Force. Because I went to one of their cafeterias once, and I was mad. It felt like it was a full on like high scale buffet. It felt like, because yeah, compared to anything Army, Marines. I don't know about Navy. They could be good too. They see the world too.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I would say Air Force would be the best way. Maybe Space Force. I think they're a thing. So it's an interesting because like I don't know. I don't feel like the Army is as beneficial as it once was.
Okay.
I feel like Marines is a lot of a lot of the stuff that you wanted to do in the Marines is no longer a thing. Like I can't remember the name of it offhand, but yeah, they stopped doing a lot of things. Same thing with Army, airborne, infantry, and all that other stuff is
Yeah.
gone. They've kind of stopped doing them. So yeah, it's kind of just don't need to throw people out of perfectly good helicopters anymore.
Okay.
So it's been there's a lot that's changed over the past 20 or 10 years with the military. So I would say one thing that hasn't changed though is Air Force has the best stuff. They
Okay.
have the best benefits. They give you the most cushiony job. You get, or if you're not in the most cushiony job, you at least got the best pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just as far as your ASVAB scores go. And I'm pretty sure if I did the ASVAB score now, I'd be able to get into the Air Force. It was just when I did my ASVAB score, it was when I was a sophomore in high school. So
Yeah.
going into the military wasn't even an idea to me, and let alone my maturity on taking a test that was just kind of not, the ASVAB was required, but it wasn't like our grade meant anything to us.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things I did. And I want to say I got like a 40 something. So it was just like, yeah, Army sounds good for you. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Okay. All right.
So,
Well, Devontae, we run out of time. Thank you so much, brother, for sharing your personal experience of what it's like being in the military. I learned a lot from this conversation. And I know I could be, I know I will be a little bit more better equipped to share different stories when I'm around different people about the military life. So thank you so much for serving our country.
oh, thank you.
Yes, that's it for today's edition of Mental Health Matter. If you enjoyed this particular show, if you would like a DVD copy of the show, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.